Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, Mowing. To my right or my left, depending on which way you're looking at it. My co-host, Rock and Rant. How are you doing this evening, Rock?
I'm doing good. It feels like the peak of the off season, as if we just came off of rivalry week. There's so much crap going on.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about Nico still, and it's quite frankly, I'm a little bit sick of it. But hey, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. If you haven't heard the news, Nico Iamaleava did leave the Tennessee Volunteer, and hasn't found a landing spot yet. I've heard rumors and rumblings, but I mean,
Well,
your significant other might know more about that because I hear he's an LA kind of guy.
yeah, I mean, we shall see whether or not that all plays out. I actually was thinking of like Peter Gabriel references in terms of like the music analogies that you just did. Like Biko is now Nico. And we don't know where he's gonna go. But I think it's going to be interesting to see, right? Because he's either the canary in the coal mine for one reason or another, right? He's either the harbinger of more of that to come, or all the coaches rally around it and the schools rally around it and virtually collude to never let a holdout do that again, which some coaches have already talked about. Or he's the canary in the coal mine for like exactly how to play yourself, right? Like one of two things is likely. He either knows that he has a bigger offer somewhere else, right, from his team, or think they did, or they overplayed their hand dramatically and he's not going to wind up there. In terms of like where he goes, all sorts of rumor mills. I know your school was put into that mix. Oregon was in that mix, yet Dan Lanning supposedly is the one who told Tennessee. UCLA and USC are supposedly in that mix. I think it would be pretty significant if UCLA landed him. It would say that their NIL game certainly went up, but I guess we will find out. It's just the shot for what's going to be an insane week with the portal, really.
Yeah, no doubt. Spring portal opens. Some spring games happened this weekend. The Ohio State Scarlet and Gray game happened. Pretty much what you would expect from a spring game, and just scrimmage. Some flashes of greatness. Max Clare, tight end from Purdue, came over, caught a touchdown. CJ Donaldson, the great running back from West Virginia, came in, trimmed about 20 pounds, and really kicked it into second gear. So I was happy to see that. The Nico
Very good.
stuff, the Nico stuff, the Nico stuff. Yeah, the report, if you didn't catch it, there was a report that he was going to either Oregon, Ohio State, and Colorado. And those are the three worst schools, in my opinion, that his agent could have picked to try and pretend like they had offers from. I just know from the Ohio State side, Ohio State didn't have any interest in him. I'd imagine that Dan Lanning was the same way because I can't imagine a Duck not poaching a player. So, and Colorado, Dion went all in on that quarterback recruit he had. So I couldn't see him telling him to sit a year while Nico Iamaleava gonna play.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't put anything past. I think Dion will do what Dion needs to do if he wanted him, right? Like he brought somebody else in and still recruited in a 5-star that probably wanted to start as well. And he went to Colorado and basically cut everybody. So, if he was unimpressed, and I don't know where Colorado is in terms of their spring practice that they just wrapped up, if they still have a week to go, like I'm not really sure. I'm assuming that they're close to done, if not done, like everybody, a lot of other schools are. If teams don't like what they see, no matter what commitments they made in January or previous years, if they feel like they don't have the right person, the question is whether they think that the 6th to 9th best quarterback in the SEC is the right person for them.
Yeah, definitely. In the SEC transfer rule, Nico can't transfer within the SEC. He has to transfer out of the SEC.
Correct.
Which is really interesting that clause is ironclad, but none of the other stuff is ironclad.
Because they can, handle that within their own organization, right? Like it's a rule within their conference. It's a lot. You don't have to have all these other conferences abiding by the rule or the NCAA. So I think it is interesting. That seems to be the one thing, but it also makes practical sense because it's just within their conference.
True enough. Let's say hello. We got some people filtering in here on a Sunday evening. Spring football. Hey, Mo and Rock and Rant and CFM fam. Go Devils. Thank you, Joaquin Morales. Forks up to you, sir. Nathan Campbell says, hi, guys. Good to see
Hey,
you, Nate.
Nathan.
Mr. Ed Wayner, could this whole Nico drama be the turning point where the majority of college football fans embrace the NCAA NIL clearinghouse, even if it reduces the advantages of well-funded NIL collectives? I know I am on board. I'm on board too. I like the idea of a clearinghouse. I don't like the idea of a handful of billionaires out there. It's basically pay to play, which is
Yeah. I mean, I'm not on board with the clearinghouse because I think it's all a crock of crap, personally. But I also want guardrails on the sport. I just don't think they're doing it the right way on there. You know, like I believe in the market, and it's your worth is what somebody's willing to pay you. And we're all just dancing around that it's pay for play. That's why we have this problem. They don't want to do the reality of that it is pay for play, so they're trying to couch it into something else where the market is what the market is, right? And so that's my issue with it. The insanity we're going through is not something I'm in favor of. The solutions that are being put into place, I think, are kind of annoying.
Yeah, we'll see. Congress is going to have to do something, and getting Congress to do something, like, getting a jackass to do something. John Dry says, hey, y'all. Good to see you, John. Bob Swanger, Nittany Lion here in the house, the largest living alumni group in the nation, the Penn State Nittany Lions.
A lot of people coming out of State College.
Yes, sir. Jan Hulk. Hey, all. Good to see you, Jan, all the way from Slovenia. Hope things are well over there. The Big Lubbock says hello. Good to see you, Big Lubbock. Shonsky's here. He says, what's up, guys? Good to see you, Shonsky.
What's up, man?
Daniel Gygax, Just the Facts with Daniel Gygax, the hit short series here on the College Football Mafia Network. Tune in. My friend Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, hi, all. Caleb, what did you think of the spring game yesterday? I think Sion, he's a little shorter, but I kind of like the snap of his pass. And CJ Donaldson, man, kid's got a second gear. Steele Austin's in the house. I think he's doing a show with Bomber at some point.
Yeah,
what's
supposed
up?
to.
Yeah, what's up, College Football Mafia? Go Utes. And then Two Master chimes in, Utes to the Big Ten. LOL. I don't know if anybody saw that. That is from Message Board Geniuses. Made a post on Twitter about Utah to the Big Ten.
Message Board Geniuses is really the only undefeated team in college football.
That's true. Done deal, Two Master says. It's a done deal. Paul Bond says hello. Good to see you, Paul. RT says howdy, howdy. Good to see you, RT. Joe Applewhite says hello. Good to see you,
Hey,
Joe. MBM, same thing happened with Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State. Gave up his last year starting to ride the bench behind Jason Dart. Almighty Fem with RIP to Kyron Lacey, wide receiver from LSU. Yeah, that news broke this morning. That was a little disappointing to see. Been a rough couple of months for the kid coming out of college.
Yeah, for sure. It's a series of tragic events, and I'm not really sure why what may have happened that he got possible charges for has anything to do with people like using that to minimize what happened to him yesterday. Like, both are tragic events in their own right for different reasons.
Yeah, losing two lives over it, and survivor's remorse is a thing, people. It is a thing. Dan Lanning is a snitch, says Clint Moses.
Dan Lanning, because I'm sure that all the quarterbacks that have transferred to Oregon over the last few years completely, absolutely, 1,000% were in the portal before anybody expressed interest. I'm sure Dante Moore did
I'm
not talk to
sure.
Oregon before he
I'm
got in the
sure
portal
the
officially.
running back that left Minnesota was completely committed to going in the portal before Oregon called him and offered him a bunch of money.
And I'm giving shade at Dan Lanning. That's a universal shade you can do, right?
Sure. Well, the rumor I have heard is they heard Nico was taking visits in LA. They thought it might be USC. So it wasn't Dan Lanning doing it so much out of the kindness
Altruistically.
of his heart as Dan Lanning trying to keep him away from USC if possible.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like the Alabama athletic director complaining about transfer portal and people being poached as he school had just signed, a wide receiver from, I don't know, Miami about 13 seconds after he officially entered the portal. I'm sure that deal was just that easy to do.
Well, and then, a lot of people said that Tennessee and Oregon are like kindred spirits when it comes to these things. I mean, they both got the break speed off of them in the playoffs by the Buckeyes. So just saying. I've heard USC, SMU, and Texas Tech for Nico. Texas Tech could be in play. I didn't think about that.
I have not heard SMU. I have seen Texas Tech thrown out there in the rumor mill, and I don't know if that's because there's some, a little bit of smoke there, or if it's just because Texas Tech has been spending like drunken sailors who just got off of a ship for years after striking oil.
Yeah, I've heard USC and UCLA were the two that I heard, but
yeah,
Texas
and I'm
Tech,
surprised on both of those because I don't think UCLA has had a history of coming into the amount of money that Nico is rumored to have wanted from Tennessee. And I don't know that USC, which has money, has that extra money from their boosters right now in support of Lincoln Riley.
What? Okay. Question. What does Nico get paid? He's on the open market now. He wanted $4 million, I believe, was what he was looking for. He was at 2.5. He wanted to go up to 4. What does he ultimately end up making?
Look, I thought when it first started happening on Friday, I was of the mindset that he's going to get $4 million or from somebody, because I just couldn't imagine that they were playing his team, whether it's his dad, his agent, however he's being handled, that they didn't have an idea of what it was going to be, and they might have had factual on the ground information about, did Mensa going to Duke really get $4 million? In which case, you can say, regardless of some of the performances there, that he probably could get a $4 million North deal from somebody. But then when the Dan Lanning stuff came out, to whatever the truth is or isn't behind that, it became more skeptical. I still think it's not out of the question that he lands somewhere in that $3.5 to $4 million range that he was seeking. It just might come from somebody that surprises us, is kind of my take on there. But there also could be this, who knows if this is just like a virtual collusion where everyone is putting their foot down about the holdout situation without actually talking to each other, and somehow the market completely dries up and he becomes, the canary in the coal mine, as I was alluding to, for a very different way. Like, he's the guy who started off the NIL craziness, really, if you think about it, with his, $8 million 4-year deal. Then he's taking it another place here. He could be the poster child either for it's still Wild West, or Wild West is getting constrained. And then I can almost imagine a lawsuit coming about that, as if coaches somehow all got together and schools did in the background, as opposed to just all getting tired of it at the same time.
The fear for me, if I'm Nico, is, let's say you go to a college, you get whatever it is you're looking for. You get, we'll say 4. We'll say he hits
Right.
$4 million. Now you play, you do decent, you're okay. Now you go into the NFL draft. Does what happened at Tennessee hurt your draft stock? potentially in an NFL draft situation, are GMs going to start asking you questions, pre-draft interviews, like, "Oh, are you going to hold out on us if we don't meet some kind of standard 2 years down the road for an extension?"
I think he absolutely will get asked a question should he get drafted. I mean, I don't know if he'll go. He has 2 years of eligibility left, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um, it depends upon how good he is when it's all said and done. If he actually hits his ceiling, or certainly raises the floor he had from the evaluations coming out of high school. I don't know if you noticed that whole entire class of 2023, almost all of the 5 stars, or all of them, have all transferred. That came out, the 5-star quarterbacks, and some have fallen downhill, to G5 level from their original P2 level recruitment. But yeah, I think he will get those questions. I mean, NFL guys ask crazy questions if you've ever paid attention to
Right.
any of the things that they get asked. So something as obvious as that, I think, is definitely going to get there. I know that some people said that players who've transferred a lot might get asked questions, but I don't know if that's really materialized to the degree, at least not that I've heard anecdotally, just from reading whatever you might read about sports online. But yeah, I'm sure he'll get those questions. He's put himself in that position that they're going to want to make sure that they're going to at least ask him. He's going to lie. He probably will hold out. He has a history of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even so much the question being asked is it going to be held against you in the draft stock? Uh, let's say a
Yeah.
team really likes you, but that's out there, and they've got a defensive player equally rated with you. Do they take a defensive player because the defensive player shut his mouth and played for 3 years at the same school for the original amount of money agreed upon?
Yeah, and look, it's possible. It really depends on how good does he elevate himself, if he does at all, from this year. He has been alluded to as being the trailer, not the tractor, right? He didn't lead Tennessee in, but he didn't hurt them. He was just he was part of it, but wasn't necessarily the person that got them there. If he becomes the tractor that pulls a team into and elevates them in other people's minds, and there's enough, draft hungry teams looking for a quarterback, they're going to look past something, as long as it's not really dangerous stuff off the field and it's just harsh business.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was a huge part of that Tennessee. I mean, they lost to Ohio State, obviously, but he was literally the offensive spotlight of that game. I'd have to look up his stats, but I believe he was the leading rusher and everything else. So
Yeah, I mean, he was, but because they also got their ass kicked, right? So it's all, relative in that game. And I'm not diminishing. Tennessee went to the playoffs, and he was part of that, and you can't just dismiss it. But he didn't have a massive season. He wasn't a top 20 quarterback in college football from a QB rating.
no, I agree with that, and I think that's part of the problem is the weapons that Tennessee had around him. But at the same time, first and foremost, as a QB, you've got to be a leader. You got to have leadership skills. And the idea that you're going to go, Tennessee needs to put weapons around you, and then you're going to go back to Tennessee hat in hand and say, oh, by the way, I need another $1.5 million to come back here and play again.
Right.
After one season, and you're right. It's not like he had Joe Burrow like numbers when Joe Burrow was at LSU. It was, it was middle of the pack numbers. He did take them to the playoffs. That he does deserve credit for that. He took them to the
Absolutely.
playoffs. He actually played. He performed better than most of the team did in that playoff loss. But yeah, leadership, man. Got to have leadership, and that's just to me, that's not leadership.
It's going to be interesting, we'll see how many other QB, it also is going to be very dependent upon how many other QB1s go in, if any, right? And how many schools do not feel good after spring. Because he might, I was trying to think of it and couldn't think of one, and asked whatever AIs to do some research, and they couldn't find one, which doesn't mean crap. But I don't remember in this recent NIL portal era of a P4 program getting their starting quarterback in the spring portal for that season as the plan, as opposed to like maybe somebody got hurt and they ascended sooner. Winter portal, absolutely, all day, every day, tons of that.
Yeah.
But the spring one, I couldn't think of someone. If anybody in the chat thinks of somebody who transferred as a quarterback after spring and wound up starting for that school that August, please enlighten us, especially at the P4 level.
Yeah, anymore it's too hard to keep track of who's transferring. So,
well, one thing I will say, Mario Cristobal was asked about this after the spring game, which nobody could see because they didn't broadcast it. They did it, they didn't broadcast it. Was something along the lines of everybody's in the portal and the portal is always open. And that's essentially true, right? Like whether you like it or not, one way or the other, officially or not, that's what's going on. Like the portal is open for everyone, even if you're not in it. That's just how it is working at the moment, and probably will work in some form. The money might be reined in, but probably will continue on that level if you're not putting these guys into actual employment contracts and pay for play, no matter what happens with the House settlement.
Don't make me play the Wild Wild West song here, Rock. I'm really not a huge fan of what's happening in college athletics. Again, I put it this way. It's a pendulum. For 80 plus years, you're right, it was wrong that they didn't get any compensation. Doesn't make that it's equal. It doesn't mean that it's right now that it's swung so far over to the point where you can hold up colleges and screw over teammates and all this other stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm not defending it. I'm more just like giving a take on what is actually happening. I don't go as far as being as annoyed on the player side because I fall in the zone. Well, this is the unintended consequences of the schools and NCAA not wanting to do the things that would prevent this as the pendulum swung, right? And therefore it rocketed past a sane place into an insane place. And it sucks that it's there from a fan's perspective. But they chose to not try to get it somewhere, in balance, or maybe a little bit more in favor of the players versus the 80 years. And therefore it has swung to Wild Wild West. Cue the music.
Yeah. I'm not playing the song. But yeah, I mean, it just, I don't know why we have to have things in extremes. I don't know we can have anything in moderation. And I say that as I reach for my whiskey bottle.
I just knew that was coming.
I drink in moderation. Moderation exists wherever I drink. SEC will get poached with that transfer rule. I think everybody's going to get poached.
Yeah, it's happened. It just, I mean, all they're doing is eliminating right now 15 teams from poaching them, right? Of whom 8 or 9 of them are very high paying teams. Others are pretty high paying teams. But that's just their reality they've chose to do, and I understand the decision.
Morris Simmons is in the house. Good to see you, Morris. Hello, everyone. Go Knowles 2027. By the way, if you're a member and you haven't caught it yet, I highly recommend you go take a look at Thursday's members-only live stream. We broke down why Florida State's one of the most undervalued assets in college football realignment. Daniel Gagak says CJ Donaldson was really good at WVU. And then WV Wildman 82 says he is really fast north and south, not so much east to west. We're going to miss his power, though. Yeah, he trimmed down quite a bit. He was about 20 pounds lighter than he played at West Virginia. And it really showed. And the offensive line was getting some push out there, and CJ was burning. So I was very happy with that transfer. When transfers help my team, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Mark
Photo for me, but not for thee.
That's right. Talk about Cam Ward. McElroy wins. So Rory has apparently won Augusta. Congratulations, Rory. I don't really follow golf except the Memorial Tournament. Clint Moses says, I hate that Le'Veon Bell started that trend. There were people before Le'Veon Bell who started that trend. But yes, Le'Veon Bell fell into that trend.
Absolutely.
But I'm not a Steelers fan, so I was excited for it. I personally don't think Nico is worth more than $2.5 million. He is already receiving from Tennessee. He had little to do with Tennessee's success.
I'm not sure how that's very different from half the NFL quarterbacks.
Steel Austin says BYU is spending $0 on their own QB1. They aren't going to spend $4 million on another QB. How many million are they spending on that basketball team?
They're treating some of the players on their football team like it's the track team.
Les Austin Jr. says good evening and HTV. I'm not going to say that. Sounds like Tennessee was cheap. Now Nico suffers. Yeah. Damn volunteers. But I mean, I can understand it as a kid. If you look out in the stadium, there's 100,000 people cheering you on. That there's obviously money to be made there.
You can, you can see it from somebody's own perspective. If you're him and you see Darren Mensah go from Tulane to Duke for rumored to be $4 million, right? Like whether that's the real number or not. And if your agents think that, I understand why you might think that you're worth that. If you see, Carson Beck going to Miami, you see like a $10 million deal, and you don't put any context that, like, I don't think Miami paid Carson Beck $10 million. I think he's going there and he's getting multiple third-party NIL deals, so the whole thing is coming out a different way. Plus, some of that was the residual value of deals he signed under Georgia. You figured out, well, I can go get more than I'm making if that guy's making that, regardless of the what you've accomplished on the field versus somebody. But I also get it from Tennessee's perspective as well, for sure.
Yeah, my only fear with all of this, guys, is at some point the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, SEC are just going to pull the plug on it, and they're going to walk away. They're going to say, "This is what we have. This is what we're going to do," and there is no NCAA anymore, or there will be, but it will be without the power conferences. I don't know. I think I'm not a government kind of guy on these things, but I think the government does need to step in.
Yeah, I will remain the last skeptic in the house that the Ross Dellinger article and what Greg talked about will happen. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I don't really personally like it, but I just, until it's done, I don't believe it.
Well, here's my point of view, and I'll explain why. It's not that I don't want kids to get paid. I do want kids to get paid. It's that I want them to remain student athletes. That is a compound word. Student athlete. The way it is swung now is too far to the athlete. The way it was previously was too far to the student. So I'd like to see it fall closer to the middle. Student athlete. I believe it probably will take legislation, some kind of carve out to do that. The agents are not going to do what's right for college football. They're going to do what's right for the agents.
Their job is not to do what's right for college football. Their job is to do what's right for theoretically for their client. Not that all of them do that, but not all of them are, not doing their best interest of their clients. But yeah, their job as an agent is to get their clients the most amount of money they can within whatever construct there is. It's not to look out for the member organizations who have their own lawyers.
Right. And if there were some guidelines or rules
or
regulations that actually set forth how agents can do that, right now there's not.
Correct.
This is 100%. This isn't Nico did not. I highly doubt Nico Iamaleava, who was making $2.5 million, suddenly one day said, I want to make another $1.5 million. This is his agent that put this on his head.
Or his dad.
Or his dad. Or
in this
his
case,
his agent talking to his dad.
Right, for sure. And some of these agents are not doing the right thing. They're taking 10, 15% off of deals, and they shouldn't be doing that for NIL deals. It should be in the 3 to 5% range. there's a few good lawyers on there who will represent that. People also need to understand the difference between agents in NIL and the lawyers on Twitter, because they're two different groups. They're not necessarily doing the same thing, though they work together.
Absolutely. Steel Austin says BYU spends big NIL on basketball, not football. Go Black 45 says if Tennessee goes 8-4 or 7-5, is Josh on the hot seat?
Not at all. Not this year. I think he gets a pass for what happened, because that was a decision, an organizational decision. I think he handled his press conference really well, actually, taking more of a high road than he necessarily needed to. But he was also, he put whatever they've talked about, all the coach speak, they put it into action, whether it was, for the most altruistic reasons or just because they needed to. But he, they didn't put Nico above the program. So I think he's definitely doesn't have to worry about this year.
I think Tennessee needs to be worried more about Heupel getting poached by possibly Oklahoma than firing him this season. BYU Shonsky says, I hope it bites him the ass. These are those NIL locker room deals I've talked about in the past. Nico cost Tennessee a loss, according to FanDuel. Well, FanDuel owes me a lot of money, so
I'm willing to blame Nico for that too.
I'll blame Nico for that too. I've got a graveyard full of 5-way parlays lost on game number 5 to FanDuel.
I mean, I personally, if I can't actually say your name correctly consistently, I don't put you in any bets because it's just bad karma.
Clint Moses says, great show, gentlemen. Thank you, Clint.
Appreciate it, Clint.
Trying to have a little lighthearted frivolity here on a Sunday night. I don't even.
Iligaha.
Woo!
I think he's trying to give us a new way of saying something. I don't even know. I don't know what that's an allusion to. If it's like a cheer that I have no idea about. If it's like a really bad way of saying Nico's last name, I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Look like I give half a ham sandwich. Ryan Willie, the Evil Badgers here, he says, watch him fall flat at his next stop. I saw a lot of people on Twitter also saying Nico to Wisconsin. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it could, but I don't think Fickle's going to tolerate that shit. What's worse about Nico is he held out the day before the spring game. Fuck Nico. There we go.
I mean, he did Tennessee a favor in a way.
That's true.
Not intentionally, because if he played the spring game for however long and then did it the day after, they wouldn't have gotten as much burn on their guys. I don't know that it really solves their quarterback problem and their plan. I think they will be probably looking in the portal just to backfill at a minimum the depth on the team, but depending upon who goes in, they could be an active player. The entertaining thing would be if somebody surprising goes into the portal from the quarterback position, they actually wind up getting $4 million from Tennessee.
Daniel Gagak says, with pro sports, agents have to be league certified. With college athletics, who is there to do it? NCAA conferences, nobody.
The guys who certify all the street agents in college and high school basketball, probably.
But I mean, realistically, you want to talk about how fucked up basically the NCAA system is. Jimmy Sexton represents, I believe, 11 out of the top 12 paid head coaches in college football. And isn't it amazing when a job comes up and one of them gets considered, everybody gets raises? He moved Kalen DeBoer over to Alabama and used a bunch of subterfuge to make sure Sarkisian got paid, to make sure that Norvell got paid. I'm not arguing against success. Guy's obviously extremely successful, but it kind of makes you scratch your head and go, might be a little unethical.
It's like that coaching analogy to whatever, I don't remember, like whenever Germany or whatever country in Europe gets sick, all of Europe gets a cold. It's like the reverse. When one of
Right.
Sexton's clients gets a job opportunity, all the other universities lose money.
Yep, pretty much. Pretty much. How do we get rid of pay for play so real NI deals can be made?
We need to get pay for play, and then real NIL deals can be made. It's a substitute. If they were actually getting paid, then the NIL deals would be separate, right? It wouldn't be trying to, and they'd probably go down on market value as opposed to folding in all of their intrinsic value on the field, not in their influence in the market.
Right. You're talking about pay for play as in rev share.
Correct. Or like if you get paid to go do this job, you get paid to be a quarterback, then you're Patrick Mahomes, right? You get paid by the Chiefs and you get paid from whatever insurance company, and that has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with your pay for the Chiefs per se. The better you do in your play on the field, you become more valuable as a brand, and then your name, image, and likeness deals can go up until you just become such a mega star that it doesn't even matter what you do on the field anymore, or even if you're on the field anymore, like Dion was post-career.
Ask Brock Harris and McKay Madsen and soon to Ryder Lions about BYU's NIL for the football team. BYU is spending a lot of money, but is it really NIL? That's the question, Shonsky. Is it NIL or is it just a loosely veiled bagman?
All of this is loosely veiled bagmen.
Ryan Willie says, is Fickle's buyout too high to give him a pink slip if he goes 3-9 or 4? Ryan, I'm going to save you some trouble right here. You're going to end up having to pay that buyout if he goes 3-9 or 4-8.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, I have zero idea why you guys gave him an extension like that.
I understand the logic to it, but you're going to have to pay his buyout regardless. But yeah, if he goes 3-9, he's gone. Goes 4-8, he's gone. He's gone. And he's got nobody to blame but himself. He went that Phil Longo experiment. I'm going to come to Wisconsin and set up this system that I don't have players for yet. And then once that system doesn't work out because the players get injured, I'll fire that coach and go back to the system I had previously where I had the players. Listen, a duck is a duck. Wisconsin or Badgers. You run the ball. I mean, literally, Barry Alvarez spent 2 decades showing you how to do this. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. I'll give you a little Badger noise. And I'll give you a little evil Badger, too. Appreciate the super chat, Ryan. It is appreciated. But yeah, I think if Fickle hits that mark, he is going bye-bye. Joseph Kurlagon Jr. Good to see you, Joseph. I support what Nico did. The college athletes won the right for the transfer portal and NIL, and he used it. The complaining is not made about unrestricted free agency in the NFL in the early 90s. I wasn't holding a show on the early 90s, but
for sure. I think that as passionate and large as the NFL is, there is, I think, a different level when it comes to colleges right now in terms of fan acceptance. One, because all of this is newer model. Not saying it was right that they weren't getting paid before, but it's newer for people to accept. And although college football is not as big as the NFL in ratings overall, people are closer to it, I think, on average, for the fans that are the most hardcore about it, because you have a personal connection beyond just like rooting for that team. A lot of people have like family who went to the school. They went to the school. I never played for the Jets. I probably would make them better if that happened, because they can't go any worse. But it's not the same. As much as I love them and hate them at the same time, it's not the same as I feel about my college. So.
Yeah, and I'm not holding it as a Cincinnati fan against T. Higgins or Jamar Chase for asking for more money. They've earned it. They have earned it, but they were also T. Higgins was tagged twice in order to get that deal done. So, but yeah, I do not support unrestricted free agency in the NFL. I always thought there should have been some kind of compensation going to another franchise, even if it's not anything significant or super significant. Brock Harris has 4 billboards going down I-15 now, and he isn't even a signed recruit yet. NIL. Yeah, that's
Depends. Yeah, in some form, depending upon what it's promoting, right?
well, that's a problem too. People are going to say, "Well, you threw him up on a billboard. Who deserves to get paid $4 million for a billboard?" I think there has to be some kind of oversight, and if we don't want the government to do it, then the NCAA and the Players Association got to get together and figure it out, because we're traveling too quickly into the realm of NFL light. And one of the reasons I prefer college football to the NFL is it isn't the NFL.
Understood. But the the challenge is, again, because we're not doing things the same and expecting the same. The NFL does not regulate anybody's name, image, and likeness deal, right? Like whatever Patrick Mahomes does with State Farm is not impacted directly with the NIL, other than there might be certain restrictions about what he can do with their trademarks in somebody who's not also an NFL partner. Here, college sports has made the decision to funnel everything into that in the guise of getting paid. And it's not even clear to a lot of people what happens differently for name, image, and likeness for collectives that are brought into the program versus external as it relates and maps up to revenue share. Like I've asked so many people that question from the settlement, and I've gotten different answers about what actually is going to happen in reality.
Right, but I'm taught you're right. Everything gets wrapped up in NIL, and there's things that logistically are not possible for it to be NIL, and it's strictly a cash payment to a player in order to sign with a university.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely not saying that it is actually being done the way that technically it's supposed to be done, or what you actually would pay for somebody on the open market for somebody who has a following of 5,000 people on Instagram.
Absolutely. I didn't watch really much of the spring game. Was out with family for breakfast. I think Cyan is the quarterback one. Yeah, he looked good. He's shorter than I thought. He is a little shorter than I thought, but he's got good snap to his pass. The new number 1 receiver they signed out of South Florida, Graham, looked really good too. So, and Ennis showed up and did pretty well. I was actually pretty surprised at how well Ennis played that game. But
What were you worrying if he would be a transfer portal candidate for the spring?
well, I know there've been some schools that have been sniffing around, so you always got to worry. But he's in the rotation. He's going to be, I guess, receiver number 3 this year. So, and Graham is going to be situational. We already read that one. Daniel Gygax lets you know when France sneezes, Europe gets cold.
Thanks for correcting me, Daniel. I knew it was one of those 2 countries. I guess wrong.
Ryan Lilly says, I didn't want Fickle from the start. Okay, well, that's if Fickle would have just stuck with what they were doing up there, Fickle would have been fine. He couldn't do it. He wanted to modernize Wisconsin's offense, and just like Stalin modernized the Soviet Union, it took heavy losses. Who says he got $4 million? I'm not saying it. I'm just saying it as a hypothetical kid, Shonsky. You see a kid make $4 million, and then you throw a billboard up and say, "See, NIL." That, come on. Joseph Kurlagon Jr. says, I think it's funny how people want a salary cap in college sports when the athletes do not have union representation. It is illegal for someone to put a cap on how much money they can earn.
Welcome to the world of rules for thee, but not for me, Joseph. Come on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Joseph Kurlagon, except when there's an antitrust exemption, which is exactly what the NCAA and its member institutions are going to be seeking. They want the same antitrust exemption basically the NFL gets. Rock's dog doesn't like it, but
It
that's
does not.
coming. That's coming. They're going to start hammering away on the politicians here. Shonsky says, got to remember also BYU owns their own TV channel and network. A lot of NIL possibilities in this NIL world. We are in with NIL. Again, Shonsky, I'm not disagreeing with you, but we can be honest and call a spade here. It's if you're paying a kid $8 million to come play basketball for you, there's not a television contract with BYU TV that pays $8 million.
I think that Shonsky got an NIL deal to mention the word NIL 3 times in one comment.
And I'm not, Shonsky, don't think it. I'm taking shots at BYU exclusively. I can say the same thing for Ohio State. Caleb Downs came in, and I'm sure he got some kind of pay for play deal above and beyond NIL. Hell, we know there are some Ohio State athletes that got NIL deals they didn't even get because 2 radio hosts pocketed them. Rec Talk. Good to see you, Rec Talk. Georgia Tech. Let's do a little Georgia Tech here. I can't drink too much tonight. I got a procedure in the morning, but let me see. Where is my I reorganized all these so I knew where everything was and I lost it. There it is. Like all the giant fellows, I drink my whiskey clear. I'm a random wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. Hey.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be respectful of the Mafia's overall community.
Listen,
to a degree.
You probably
look above my head. That's probably a reflection of other things.
Rec Talk, I don't know if you saw it yet, but go back and watch Thursday's members only live stream. I ended up having to apologize to Florida State fans. They were doing a little bit better than I thought they were. And Georgia Tech, we discussed Georgia Tech too. They're on there. Colleges should be able to put a cap on what they pay athletes without a cap being placed on their NIL opportunities. Bingo, Antoine Johnson. That is, you summed it up better than I ever could. Winner. I believe you've got rev share. I believe you've got NIL opportunities, but NIL opportunities need to be going. There has to be some oversight over it to determine what is a legitimate NIL opportunity and what is NIL masquerading, pay for play masquerading as NIL.
Billable hours will remain undefeated.
I'm curious about the sunset provision on how long they could be considered students. Would that length end up being flexible?
Well, it's a new theoretical provision that they're discussing. And the thing with sunsetting things is they can sunset and they can get extended and rolled over and pushed back. So, they could become very fickle into what happens depending upon the nature of the Congress at the time that sunsetting is about to happen and the lobbying efforts of whoever is trying to advocate one way or the other for it. That was in the Ross Dellinger article about it for those who are paying attention or missed the whole antitrust update on congressional progress on any possible legislation.
Yeah, nothing more frightening than asking the government to step in, but
Ted Cruz gets a lot of stuff done, though. I'm sure it'll happen.
It's true. Well, listen, I can tell you both senators from Ohio are for it. So
yeah, and Cory Booker's there, ex-Stanford guy. I know they're working close together. I'm being facetious. I just don't believe anything's going to happen on that until it happens. I believe they're trying to get legislation happen. I'm just skeptical in the current climate that anything like that will get done. But maybe I could be wrong, and I'll take the L on it for sure.
Midterms coming up next year. They want to earn brownie points with college football fans. They'll get it done. Rec Talk says Nico screwed himself here. No one is going to pay him what Tennessee was, let alone more.
So then the question is, Rec talking to everyone, do we all think, or do many of you think that his team completely blew it in a world where it's fairly easy to get an idea of what your worth is before you make such a dramatic statement like a holdout? Do you think they just completely overestimated themselves, or do you think that they have an idea of where they're going to go and they're just not putting it out there? Or did they have a place that they thought they were going to go and then the story spun in a different way, and their options that they thought might pay them more no longer exist? That's like a third possibility.
And there's an even fourth possibility here: the slippery slope argument. Does this cap or a rev share cap or an NIL oversight, does that give the players the right to immediately enter for eligibility in the NFL draft?
The NFL wouldn't they have to change their rules about what year you have to be able to enter?
Well, wouldn't the NFL be but wouldn't the NFL be held could be held legally liable for that?
Yeah, one of those things I haven't necessarily paid attention to. I guess I just presume that because it has stuck for some while, there is some reason that it hasn't been able to be successfully challenged in court from other metrics. It's obviously the NBA is a one and done situation, so it's not necessarily universal. So I don't know if that plays up into some degree of what the NFL has that has allowed that to continue.
Well, they have actually challenged it. That's why Maurice Claret and what's the receiver who went to the Detroit Lions? I forget his name. They both came out their sophomore seasons because a court ruled that they could, and then the court ruled that they couldn't. A higher court ruled that they couldn't, and then they were going to the Supreme Court, and the NFL basically just kind of washed their hands and said, just let these two in and nobody else. But who knows? I just putting it out there. The last thing I want to see is college football become NFL light.
That's
just me.
I don't want disassociated athletic departments renting logos that I know that in this era of pay that the players aren't, for some education may not be as important if they're getting that kind of bank, but for most student athletes, education actually is important. And even for those who are going to go on to be successful NFL players, they want that. And just the idea that they walk the same place that other students did and have the interaction is what helps the fandom and the traditions go. So I don't want it to be a junior league where Michigan or Ohio State are renting out their uniforms to some third party entity, and none of those guys are actually involved with anything related to the school other than where they practice.
Yeah. And now for something completely different. You watch any UFL? Rock.
I did not watch. I have in the past. I did not pay attention to the first week. This was the first week, right?
I don't know if it's the first week or not, but I'm going to fix it for him here real quick. Listen, guys, stop putting UFL franchises in NFL cities. Nobody is going to come out to watch an inferior football in a Dallas. And, whereas you look at a town like St. Louis with the St. Louis Battlehawks, packed.
Right.
Nobody else can get packed. The other thing I would say is go to a medium-sized market. You don't need to go to New York City. If there was a UFL team here in Columbus, Ohio, I would support it. You can even put Ohio State players who didn't quite make it in the NFL. You can put them on there. Put Benjamin Victor on there. Do similar things with a team in Austin and maybe a team in Mobile or Birmingham. I know they've got one in Birmingham, but one in Florida for the Florida State and Florida Gator guys who just didn't quite catch on. But it's not good. It's not going to last the year. It's not going to last the year, Rock.
It's all about it really depends upon the TV product, right? Like whether they're just operating enough off of whatever their TV deal and the TV networks that are covering it, or selling enough advertising. Like that's all it's a programming play that just happens to use stadiums as sound stages, really, with few exceptions.
Yeah,
but I don't doubt that they won't go. That what you're saying isn't exactly what will happen.
Yeah, my point more is, look, you go by your TV channel and you flip on the game, and there's 200 people in the stands. I don't care how good the football is on the screen. Most people aren't going to stick around to watch because they say, hey, there's 200 fans. They can't even get fans to their damn stadium.
Right.
And all those fans, I bet you 50% of them are papered tickets. They didn't even pay. They just said, please come sit in the stands.
Yeah, they don't do a very good job marketing that league at all, or thinking it through logically. And I know that some of the ideas you've said have been thrown about, to some of these schools, to some of these leagues, whether it was XFL, USFL, now the UFL combined entity. I don't know why they've dismissed those. I don't know if it's the network saying we need somebody in the big markets. But the big markets have a lot of other stuff to do in the spring, and not that the small markets don't, but it has more of a novelty and perhaps a chance to get traction.
Absolutely. That guy's speeding off to get UFL tickets right now.
Damn, that went through like closed windows. That was pretty freaking loud, man. Loud pipes save lives.
Definitely. All right, guys. We don't really have much for a show tonight. I apologize, but like I said, we are kind of winding things down here. We'll go for about another 5 to 10 minutes. If anybody wants to pop some stuff in here, I see people arguing about BYU in the chat. I'm staying far away from that one.
Yeah, we'll just index everything, and we'll make sure that Nate and Wild Ute can see it.
That's a Nate Ute discussion right there. You do that when Nate and Ute are on.
That's a popcorn discussion for the two of us. Sit there and not take sides and just watch the war happen.
Rob Ellen says, I know traveling to the Pacific Northwest is brutal, but the Seattle Dragons did okay for attendance. Yeah, but I think the only one I know that actually consistently did well was the St. Louis Battlehawks, because there's not an NFL franchise there. Rob Allen again says, things I want to see in person before I die: 1 monster truck and tractor pull, and 2 a Canadian football game. I like Canadian football.
Monster truck is way better in person than you would think. I'm not necessarily that person, but my friend heads marketing for that tour. So whenever they're in LA, I got to see it at SoFi and down at the Angel Stadium. It's pretty awesome in person. They do a great job marketing and doing fan engagement. It's actually really impressive what they do. A lot of the sports leagues could actually learn from them. They do the same thing with that. They run Supercross. So if you get a chance to go check that stuff out, Rob, wherever you live, I encourage you to do it. If you have kids, take them. They'll love it.
They'll love it, but just keep in the back of your mind, Rob, it's all fake. We already know Gravedigger is winning.
Bring earplugs, too, for your kid.
I had a friend once who tried getting me into they were a member of roller derby. Like, oh, you got to come see it. And I'm like, no, it's fake. And they're like, no, it's real. And I'm like, no, it's fake. I know it's fake. You ain't working me into a shoot here. That is a work.
Aren't you a wrestling guy?
I am a wrestling guy. That's why I can spot a work.
So why is one okay and not the other?
I don't look. If you approach me and say, "Hey, come see Roller Jam. It's fun, and you might have a good time." It's simulated, but it's still fun. I'd have a lot more respect for you when you try and tell me something's real when I know damn good and well it's not real. I mean, come on. How many 1-point games can you have against your bitter rival? At some point, you're going to blow somebody out. Nathan Campbell says, how fast does the ACC fall apart and by what year? By next year, I think summer of 2026 is when people announce they're leaving, and they will be gone by 2027. What do you think, Rock?
I feel like that pendulum of the tick-tock clock on the ACC keeps going back and forth, and yet still nothing has really happened other than the settlement on the lawsuit. I'd say I'm going to be more cautious and think it's going to take a little bit longer, but I don't really know. I think it's more trying to manage own expectations of wishing the destruction would have happened already.
Yeah. What he said. Daniel Gygax says, I got to see the CFL in Sacramento. There was a 2-year period where the CFL was in the USA.
CFL's fun to watch if you actually, but it's just hard to get a rooting interest. And I don't know why it doesn't transfer like, the European soccer leagues have, Premier League. Because the interesting rules are interesting to me, but it just never get that passion up like to be a big Argonauts fan.
It's not quite arena football, but they do have a player that's in motion during the snap. And they don't punt. They have 4 downs to make a first down. I remember when I was a kid, we had World Football League here in Ohio, and we had the Columbus or the Ohio Glory. And that was fun. It ended up becoming NFL Europe. And they moved all the teams from America to Europe. He's got his fingers crossed for this summer. Well, let's leave it at that. That's a high note. Oh, Big Ears Bo, you're coming in here a little bit on the late side. We're getting ready to wrap up here, but thank you for stopping in. It is much appreciated. Nathan Campbell says, will Louisville be the first ACC school to the Big 12? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think that they don't have to be the first one. My theory of the case is not that Louisville isn't probably the premier option to go to the Big 12, and they'll have no problem getting to the Big 12. I think if you make the theory that the ACC, that 4 teams from the ACC could go to the Big 12, if there's a battle between who is the 4th, and there's 4, 5, and 6 are interchangeable, that one of them makes a move first to make sure that they get a seat, whereas Louisville, I think, would always have a seat. But that's just a theory. No inside information whatsoever, just a theory. I think Louisville's going to be fine either way with the Big 12 if that comes to that.
And I think some teams are going to wait for their ACC payout. They're going to want their cut of the pie before they actually move. Movie Time Blue says the World League of American Football. Okay, I trust you. I know the team was called the Ohio Glory. They played in Ohio Stadium. Big Ears Bo says I'll have to go back and rewatch. Appreciate that. I think. What do you think? Should we move back? It's past the NFL season. Time to go back to 8 p.m. on Sundays.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I think we'll do that next week, guys. 8 p.m. and then 8 p.m. moving forward until NFL season starts. Rob Ellen says, y'all have a great night. Thank you for the show. It's a good watch. I appreciate that, Rob.
Appreciate that, Rob. Thank you.
All right, guys. We're going to end it on that. For myself, for Rock and Rant, I'm going to pop up the little last call button here. All right. What's your last call there, Rock?
Just get ready for insanity this week with the spring portal opening up. Nico might be the most dramatic example, but as all these schools that are so worried about rules try to figure out how to get everybody in before the rules take effect. So I think this will be the wildest spring portal that we have seen, and keep your fingers crossed that your school doesn't lose someone that you didn't want to.
Absolutely. My last call would be to college institutions out there to stop the stigmatism around mental health. The tragedy that happened today didn't really need to happen. Reach out, make sure these kids have people they can talk to and figure stuff out. Just a terrible, terrible situation. And my thoughts and prayers go out to the LSU locker room and teammates of that young man. and his teammates that are now matriculating off to the NFL draft. So,
Absolutely.
all right, guys, we will peace out, and we will see you on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern next week. I believe Nate's got at least 1 or 2 shows this week, and then I will see you guys again on Friday. Got some new members-only projects we're working on. I'm waiting for Sergeant Pickles to send me some data, and we're going to do more heat map graphs, which everybody seems to love. So we're going to get that all loaded in. We're going to take care of that for you here on the College Football Mafia Network. If you have not done so yet, before you leave, make sure you smash that like button. Give us a share, drop a comment. They all help us in the YouTube algorithm. Peace out.